In this session is different in focus because it's from one of the funding bodies who have been making very pleasing noises about cross-disciplinary research. So it's again, Meredith, as Mark's implied, this is an important area for mathematical modelling. So Jamie, thank you.
Thank you. So firstly, thank you for the invitation to speak today. As John said, I think my talk will be quite different from the others you'll hear today. It's much more about funding opportunities, and one of those is our grand challenge. So I thought what I'd do is, obviously this is probably, it isn't CRUK's normal audience, so I thought I'd tell you a bit about the charity, about our research strategy, tell you a little bit about why we're now starting to focus on multidisciplinary research and why we see it's important to achieve our ambitions, and then take you through some of our funding opportunities which we have available to really start to try to build a multidisciplinary research community. So Cancer Research UK is a charity. We're actually the second biggest funder of cancer research in the world, behind the NCI in the US. And as a charity, all of our income comes from donations from the public. So we don't receive any government funding directly, although we do partner with government on a number of initiatives. And a couple of years ago now, we published our new research strategy, and within that we set our ambition. And our ambition is to see cancer survival rates improving from where they are of 2 in 4 surviving for 10 years up to 3 in 4 surviving within the next 20 years or so. And to do that, we see that as being quite an ambitious challenge, but we also see a number of reasons why we're optimistic that we can meet this ambition. So before I go through what that looks like, I thought it would be useful just to tell you what CRUK looks like today. So we have a broad range of different ways in which we fund research. So we have 5 core funded institutes. We provide a number of different infrastructure routes, so clinical trials units, cancer centres and experimental medicine centres. We also fund response mode funding, so programme grants, project grants. We have career stage funding from PhD students all the way through to research fellows. And we have a broad range of different research areas that we support, from basic biology, for population research, translational research, drug discovery, through to clinical trials. I would say sort of at this point, most of our funding is largely, certainly in the basic research end of the spectrum, is largely molecular and cell biology. So very limited amount of it is multidisciplinary research at present. And so in terms of our strategy and what we want to do to deliver our ambitions, I mean, obviously from the previous slide you can see that we've got quite a strong platform on which to build towards our ambitions. In terms of where we see there's being significant opportunity to make progress, first is around prevention. So we know that many cancers can be prevented by changes in lifestyle factors, and so we want to increase our emphasis around that area. There's a significant opportunity to detect cancers earlier and to diagnose cancers better. We know that many cancers are treatable by surgery and radiotherapy when they're caught at a much earlier stage of disease. Disease that's diagnosed at a late stage, where it's metastatic, is much more difficult to treat. We see significant opportunities also in terms of treatment, in terms of developing new treatments, new drug strategies, new types of drugs. And we can also see significant opportunity around optimizing existing therapies, be that surgery, be that radiotherapy, and potentially also making sure that the right patient gets the right treatment. And then underneath that, we see that there's sort of 5 different ways in which we can help meet those ambitions. And I think, again, at this point, what's important to say is what we were thinking when we put this together was around the opportunities that are afforded with multidisciplinary research, how we can think differently and how we can start developing new technologies and new methodologies and new technologies to allow us to make the leaps forward in biology that we're looking for. So essentially, why is a charity like CRUK, which has historically been a funder of molecular and cell biology, decided to focus on multidisciplinary research? And I think when we sort of look back over the last 10 years or so, some of the major advances that have happened in biology have not happened because of something that a biologist done. They've happened because of something that an engineer or physical scientist has developed that's then allowed a biologist to ask questions that were previously intractable. So for us, looking at the UK research landscape, looking at the university sector, there's a significant opportunity for us to try to facilitate collaborations between cancer researchers and engineers, physical scientists. So I thought it would be useful just to take you through a few examples of where we can, where we've sort of seen progress happen over the last few years, to give a bit of a flavour as to where we see the opportunities lying going forward. So first example is around being able to open new fields of cancer research, and one of the sort of pivotal advances that we've seen in the last decade or so is the sequencing by synthesis chemistry method for genome sequencing, which was developed here in Cambridge, that has effectively revolutionised the way that cancer researchers think about biological problems. What this has allowed researchers to do is facilitated massive reductions in speed and cost of whole genome sequencing, which allows researchers to ask questions that they previously couldn't do. So it's an opportunity to ask questions about tumour heterogeneity, tumour evolution, with which previously were unfeasible. However, what this also comes with is that by generating masses and masses of data, you also again shows that you need bioinformaticians, computational scientists to develop analytical methods to allow again the biologists to answer the questions that they're trying to address. We also see significant opportunity for us to think about approaches which have been applied in other disciplines and bringing those to bear in cancer. And again, another example from here in Cambridge is groups in the CRUK Institute. We're looking at how you can develop methods for sort of automated analysis of tissue microarrays. And so they looked towards astronomy and looked at astronomy algorithms and applied them to the assessment of protein expression within breast cancer tissue microarrays, and we're able to demonstrate that this does have a significant concordance with what the pathologist is looking at. So again, this allows cancer researchers to overcome a bottleneck in terms of their data analysis and effectively accelerate the progress of the work they're trying to undertake. This example is actually of a project grant which we funded recently through our multidisciplinary scheme, and actually speaks quite well to the topic of this meeting. So what we funded is a collaboration between a biologist and a mathematical modeler. And here what you have is the computational models being developed. They're being fed by the biological experimental systems, and also informing the biological experimentation. So there's a synergy between the two different areas that allows the more accurate models to be developed and also informs where the direction of the biology. And then the final example that I'd give you before I move on to our funding schemes is something that's much more at the clinically applied end of the spectrum. And this is another example of a program that CRUK is funding. So this is about the development of optical imaging in surgery. So the premise behind this is for a surgeon to be able to view both white light and near-infrared in a single plane of view. So this is a program which brings together engineers, surgeons, and actually genomic scientists to build this program of work. And the overall premise behind this is that what it will allow the surgeon to do is during surgery is to be able to visualize the tumor margin, so you can have a much better tumor resection, so you spare the healthy tissue. And then an example here of what they're trying to achieve is they're trying to look at extracapsular prostate cancer. So one of the challenges here is if you remove too much healthy tissue, it has significant quality of life effects for the male patients. And so by having this method by which you can visualize the tumor in real time without having to switch between white light and infrared, will allow a much closer resection of that tumor. So I think overall this should highlight that there are significant opportunities for a funder like CRUK to step out into supporting multidisciplinary research, into supporting multidisciplinary teams. I think from our perspective, what we're seen as is typically seen as a funder of molecular biology and cellular biology. We're not seen as a funder of choice for engineers, physical scientists. So what we've put together is a number of different funding streams which we hope is going to start attracting new thinking into into cancer research. And so the first of those is our multidisciplinary project, which actually Mark sits on our review panel for that. So this is a collaboration between ourselves and the EPSRC. So the purpose behind this scheme is to bring together a principal investigator who's working on cancer and a principal investigator who's working in an engineering and physical sciences discipline. It can be any area of engineering and physical sciences. And the purpose behind it is to say, what's my problem in cancer that I'm trying to address, which is currently intractable? It's something that I can't address without a new methodology, a new technology, a new approach to helping me address this. And then to bring the engineer and physical scientist to start addressing that, to being able to think about how we can take a new approach to answering that question. I think it's probably worth saying what this scheme is not about. This scheme isn't about, for example, taking methodologies, technologies which are currently already used in a biological context and simply just applying them to cancer. We expect there to be a degree of novelty, a degree of innovation to the engineering and physical sciences aspect to help it to address the cancer problem. And one example I would use is around bioinformatics. So for example, if this is just simply a case of taking bioinformatics approaches which have already been developed and applying them to a biological question, that's not what we're looking for. If this is about saying we want to develop new bioinformatics approaches to address questions in biology which we previously haven't been able to, then that's what we're looking for. In terms of what these projects will provide you with, so they'll provide support for up to 4 years. It's up to 4 years where you have a PhD student on them, so we're happy to support students through this. They provide around about £500,000 over that time period, and we're able to fund around about 15 of those each year. In terms of where it sits within Cancer Research UK, one thing that we've deliberately done is, rather than make it a separate funding stream that's completely distinct from everything else we do, we've actually placed it within one of our existing committees, our sort of basic biology committee, which is the science committee. And the reason for doing that was, one, we've expanded the remit of science committee, so it's much more adept at or much more capable of seeking applications from engineers, physical scientists. But it's also to allow projects to grow. So when you come to the end of them, it's not just simply a case of funding stops, nowhere to go. Actually, you have a program grant you can grow into. Or if you already have a collaboration which is mature enough to attract a program grant size funding of, say, around £2 million, then that route's already there and available to you. So that's the first of our new schemes. The second is a slightly smaller award called the Pioneer Award. So this is something a bit different for us. So the premise behind the Pioneer Award is that the ideas can come from anywhere, and that new ideas which are likely to open up new avenues in cancer research are likely to be high risk. There's a significant chance that they're not likely to work, but we should be open to seeking these new ideas, and for that we should be looking anywhere for where those ideas can come from. So that's not just from biologists, that can be from engineers, physical sciences, can also be from industry if that's appropriate and they're willing to sign up to our grant conditions. But we're happy to see these ideas come from anywhere. In terms of sort of the size of these projects, they're for up to £200,000 over 2 years, and in effect you can use that money however you wish. If you don't want to have any staff on it, that's absolutely fine, but you can use that 200k however you want. In terms of what we're looking for, I mean, I've already said, we're essentially looking for anything. What we do expect is that the project would have cancer relevance, and ideally would link to CR UK's research strategy. We want to look for approaches which are novel. We want to look for new ways of addressing what is considered to be an intractable problem. And I think what we're saying is, this is work which is unlikely to be funded through our traditional mechanisms. For that, what we mean is it's unlikely to have tons and tons of preliminary data. Equally, this isn't about just trying to generate tons and tons of preliminary data for your next grant. This really is about something that may or may not work, and for us, we'll take a punt on things which might not work. So that's the Pioneer Award. Our next scheme is right at the other end of the spectrum. It's our Grand Challenge. So the Grand Challenge is It's the biggest single award that CRUK has ever given out. So these are £20 million awards, which are really sort of designed to try to accelerate progress in areas where we see a significant opportunity to really accelerate cancer research. We see this as being an opportunity to be multidisciplinary, to open up new avenues of cancer research, really to revolutionise how we think about particular problems in cancer. In terms of what we're looking at for these, so we're looking for teams of researchers. So it's likely to have one principal investigator and up to a sort of a team of around 8 or so working together to deliver this grand challenge. I think what this is not about, this isn't about sort of 8 different program grants being tacked together. This is all about trying to think about this as a coherent whole. This is about trying to think about sort of really what is it you're trying to deliver with this grand challenge funding. They're international in scope, so teams don't just have to be based in the UK. We've put a stipulation that at least 25% of the award must be spent in the UK. That's an at least figure, so if it's 100% in the UK, that's absolutely fine. What we're looking for is the right team of people to deliver a grand challenge, not just sort of within a single location. And then sort of moving on in terms of the challenges themselves. So we've launched this scheme with 7 challenges, with a view that we'll probably fund at least one this year, maybe 2. And then these would carry on sort of over the next few years until we're sort of addressing them. And I think the premise behind all of these grand challenges is that they will all require multidisciplinary approaches to be successful, to deliver them. And rather than go through them all in any detail, I'll just sort of pick out a couple which I think are quite pertinent to this audience. So actually, and none of them are on that side. So I think sort of the 2 which are probably most pertinent are sort of around being able to distinguish between lethal cancers and cancers that need treating. So this really is about being able to understand the early biology of cancer. This is about being able to not only understand the early biology of cancer, but then how can you detect those tumours at an early enough stage, and how can you develop new methodologies to understand that, to diagnose that, etc., to inform clinical treatment. And then perhaps the one that's most pertinent to this audience is around how do we find a way of mapping tumours at the molecular and cellular level. Now I think whilst that might sound like a relatively simple challenge, I think probably a biologist's view of this would be quite a reductionist approach of taking cells out, looking at them in isolation, understanding what they do in isolation, and hoping that informs what happens in an in vivo context. We see a significant opportunity here to actually start trying to develop ways in which you can understand a cell's behaviour within its in vivo context, how it's behaving in relation to the other cells that are around it and signalling pathways that are interacting. And to do that will require potentially novel ways of being able to sort of look at single cells within the context of a tumour, and that's something which will need a multidisciplinary approach to address that. So one thing I will say about all of these, rather than going through them all in any detail, if anyone's got any questions on them, please feel free to ask. Be more than happy to help. And then finally, it's something that's a little bit different. This isn't necessarily a funding scheme that's part of CRUK. This is something that's a bit different. We actually have a program called Citizen Science, and what we intend to do with this program is that we've been looking at where are some of the data bottlenecks that exist in cancer biology, and how can we use the public to help us to answer some of those questions. And in order to do that, what we've had to think about is how do we, think about data sets which can then be transformed into effectively a game or a product that the general public can engage with. But then also, once you have that data and you have that public engaged in that, how do you then engage with statisticians and etc. to look at how well the public compare in terms of with the cancer experts in terms of that data analysis, and how useful is that as a platform to help sort of speed up data analysis in the cancer setting. And I think for us, this is an opportunity for us to think a little bit differently and to engage with new communities in terms of, it could be tech companies, software companies, It could be challenge companies around how can we overcome some of the data bottlenecks that currently exist within cancer research, which needs a new way of thinking to address them. And so that's sort of a very quick whistle-stop tour of some of our funding schemes. I mean, I think just wanted to end with just reiterating again why CR UK is focusing on multidisciplinary research. So for us, we really see it as being an exciting opportunity to accelerate progress to meet our ambition of 3 in 4 surviving cancer by 2034. We really see that it's going to be engineers and physical scientists who provide the technologies and methodologies for cancer biologists to go and address the questions that they're trying to address. I think we've developed a broad range of grants that are going to support collaborations between engineers, physical scientists, and cancer researchers, and they're through from small scale projects through to grand challenges, and the intention of those is really to try to start building this multidisciplinary community. I think we're also thinking about how our existing opportunities are viewed within new research communities. So things like our program grants and our fellowships, that we want those to be open to researchers who are from different disciplines. Certainly, when we look at the multidisciplinary projects, the postdocs who come off the back of those who want to come in for fellowships, these multilingual scientists, we want them to feel that Cancer Research UK is an appropriate home for their research. So over the next few years, we'll be developing those to make sure that they're fit for purpose in that respect. And I think just to end on my final point here, which is, if you are thinking about putting together a grant that could come to CR UK, but you're not quite sure where it might fit, please do get in touch with us. We're more than happy to talk to anybody who's got an idea, and if it doesn't seem obvious where it fits, we can discuss it with you, and hopefully it will fit somewhere within our portfolio. And so I shall leave it there, other than to say thank you and happy to answer any questions.
So firstly, is this who we contact?
You can contact me, and then I can generally point people in the right direction.
Thank you. Rare chance to quiz CR UK, so any questions?
What's your role in the organisation?
So I head up the science committee, which is it's largely our basic and translational funding committee. So I have oversight of largely the basic biology portfolio. Also have oversight of the multidisciplinary funding scheme, some of our focus around cancer immunology, and also a bit of a focus around brain and pancreatic cancers in terms of trying to up the amount of investment we have in those.
I had two. So a lot of the things you're targeting multidisciplinary wise are in the research councils have used sandpits and ideas labs and things in that direction. Have you thought about those kind of approaches?
Yes, absolutely. And so with the EPSRC being involved in the multidisciplinary project, it's certainly something that we're discussing with them about how can we use that to highlight the funding stream that we have that's been running for about a year or so now, to really make sure that we're catalysing the right types of collaborations, that it really is the cancer problem first, then the sort of engineering physical sciences to address that.
My other one was, you'll have to say how much the funding split on the first scheme is you and how much is EPSA.
Yeah, so basically, so over the 5 years, it's a £37.5 million investment between the two organisations. EPSRC have put £12.5 million in, and we're putting 25 in. So we were going to do this anyway, and we went to the EPSRC and said, "Are you interested?" And they were. So for us, it's a good news in terms of being able to up that pot of funding that's available.
So Mike Ward from EPSRC is here, and people at the back.
Just a technical question. Because it's between EPSRC and Cancer Research UK, are overheads funded or not funded?
So they're not funded on this. Although in terms of grants from charities, the university can claim overhead back on those. So it comes through a different route called the Charity Research Support Fund. And actually we've been doing some work on that. It will provide you with the same level of overhead as a Research Council grant would.
All right.
Is it worth, I'm certainly not familiar with your processes, is it worth sort of going through a little bit about how it works in terms of deadlines, length of proposals, how they're referees, how they're assessed? I mean, not a complete essay as it were, but just to give us some clue, is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
exactly like EPSRC? I would guess not.
Is it any, given the audience, can you clarify whether non-UK people can be involved in these applications?
So you could be a non-UK person could be involved in terms of being a co-investigator, certainly on the multidisciplinary projects. In terms of Grand Challenge, absolutely that's international. Our other schemes are largely, it would be a UK-based PI, and then you can have co-investigators who are international, but it would involve the PI sending money out to those locations. In answer to your question very quickly, so in terms of if we just take the multidisciplinary project, so it's about 2,500 words for the project. In terms of deadlines, we actually have an initial expressions of interest deadline, and that's largely just for the office to say, is this within remit of the scheme or not, so that we're making sure that we take through things which are well within remit. So then it's the 2,500 words. So that next deadline for that is early May next year.
Sorry, the deadline for the expression of interest?
No, deadline for the expression of interest early February next year, and the full application deadline's early May. Then in terms of refereeing, so we send that out for written refereeing, referees' comments. So we'll ideally be looking to get around 3 or so referees from those. I think where we differ from the EPSRC, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't give the applicants the opportunity to respond to those referees' comments. What happens just because of the volume of applications we get through. Those applications go to an expert review panel, so we've convened a review panel which Mark sits on. It's quite a broad-ranging panel in terms of it's got cancer biologists, clinicians, it has people from imaging sciences, etc. It's quite a broad-ranging panel. They will make recommendations on the quality of those applications, and then the final funding decision is made by the science committee, so that will look at all the applications which are considered to be fundable and effectively rank those in terms of where they fit in terms of quality and priorities to CRUK. So for example, if it was a project that falls under brain tumour research, then it's likely to get a bit of an uplift at the committee if it's fundable.
Anything else for Jamie?
I just wondered if you were able to give any indication of success rate for the couple of rounds you've had so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing to say right up front is this scheme has been hugely popular. So actually what we've had is at the expression of interest stage so we're on our 3rd round now, so we've had 2 full rounds completed. Expression of interest stage, it's been around about 100 or so people coming to us saying that they want to put something in. Typically we've had around about 50 or so applying to each round, and then from the first 2 rounds we funded 5 projects at each one of those two rounds, so it's around about the 10% mark in terms of success, but when we've got a finite number that we can support, it's slightly skewed by that. What we have done is had a number which is of applications which have been scored as preliminary, so an opportunity for them to come back in the future addressing some of the concerns of the referees and the review panel. So I think we see it as being quite an iterative process. I think for us, we're still learning what good looks like in terms of these projects. We're still learning about how best to feed back to potential applicants, and I think over the next couple of years we'll really sort of build that up and be able to give the really sound advice to applicants who are coming forward.
Are you thinking of applying, Alan?
How many calls a year are there?
So there's 2 per year.
2 per year, thank you.
Okay, it is time to move on.
Right.
So can we thank Jamie again? Thank you.